I can't tell. Are we on air or so our voice track is?
I'm being terrible, yes, but we are. I'm just going to fade to the actual screen now, so that's all good.
All right. I just want
We don't have the little recording bot in here though, so I don't know if we're saving all this.
Well, the video will save it. So I just want to say, like, now we're on air, so we need to abide by the EULA for Twitch. So nothing that you would normally not do anyway. So just keep in mind that your voice is going over air. But everybody in this room, and there's a lot of you, is totally welcome to talk about anything, and it's just hanging out.
Oh well, can I say something?
Oh, totally.
Except you.
Go ahead. Yes, sir.
Oh, I wanted to comment on you were saying earlier about how people pick teams. That's 100% true. We do that quite a bit. We're completely uninvolved, but it's just like, we hope they win. We really like these guys, et cetera, et cetera. Even though we'll have completely nothing to do with it, won't be affected by it at all.
Alliance tournament teams, you mean?
No, just nullsec blocks and stuff. So you might have some ardent Matterall and NC fans and some highsec or lowsec or even a wormhole group. And they're just like, they're all about the NC and they think NC can do no wrong, or they choose them to be like the more talented in this group, or like whatever, like metrics for deciding. But like in a war that they're not involved in, they'll pick the side of whoever that they want, and they'll have like a cheering interest. It's how groups just get interested in what's going on in nullsec without getting involved in nullsec. It's super nifty. Like,
well, there's ISK wagering too. That's the thing.
Oh really? Like, so you guys are like, oh, I bet goons are gonna like fail this deployment. I'll bet you like a billion ISK or something. Oh, that's amazing.
Like, we wagered this new coalition of Russians or whatever, if they're actually going to be successful, in their invasion of I think they're going for, I can't remember.
Fraternity.
Fraternity, yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. Do you guys have like a little side bet going on?
Yeah, it's a small group of us, but we'll throw ISK around just, in bets and such, just to, see how everything turns out. And let's just say I've lost a lot of ISK that way. But I mean, hey, it is what it is. It's still all in good fun.
Oh, so I see you've bet against NC. I try to do my best kung fu voice there.
I see. No, I'm not even gonna lie. I was thinking, there's no, you shouldn't really do that.
Yeah,
probably
I guess
not the best of ideas.
Probably not, right? I don't think that can go well.
Well, fraternity gives me a hard time, so I have a reason to bet against them.
Oh, okay. Fraternity. So those guys are finally going to get some content on their time. Oh, by the way, let me interrupt myself. Brisk, you're still here, right? Brisk. Ping, Brisk.
Echo.
All right, he'll come back. When he does, we want to hear about CSM. They just got to Iceland and they're going to do this winter summit. So we'll see if we can get an update.
I think he said they've only had one meeting so far.
It was a bit of an informal meeting too, if I get it right, because I know some of the people got there quite early. I know Sutoni has been there for like 3 or 4 days.
What do people do when they arrive early? Are they just hanging out with CCPers? Like, I mean, remember what's his name used to get put up in somebody's house, and they kind of sleep over at their houses, right?
During the day, the CCPers are at work. They have to do their job. So you're hanging out, you're walking over with them to have lunch at noon, and then you're meeting them up for dinner and drinking afterwards. But you're not, and then you're sleeping until 11 the next day, basically, and you're supposedly getting over your jet lag. That's my impression.
Liquid.
That's what we did today. Sorry about that, guys.
Like, sure.
There's Brisk. What's going on in the summit?
So, I mean, we just got here yesterday. the Australians got here, I think, Thursday or Friday, and then we flew in. Merkel Chen and Amit and I were on the same flight out of DC on Friday night. It was a red eye. We got in 6:30 Saturday morning, and then Jen and Eric, and Sutonia and Steve and them came. So honestly, we had time to sit down and kind of hang out a little bit. And then last night we had our team builder event for this summit. Last summit we went on a fishing trip. This summit was basically, we don't want to do anything. We're just going to go to the bar and have an open tab and sit there and drink. So we met. It was about, the whole CSM was there, and we had maybe 25, 30 CCP devs, including a lot of new staff. I was actually very pleased to see they've hired a lot of new people. So we got to meet a bunch of new people last night, and we just talked and had a good time. And we stayed out. I think I knocked off around 2 a.m. I think some of the other guys went till like 5, but we had a good time talking to the devs and catching up with everybody.
New people, huh?
And you'll be very pleased that there was actual gender diversity. They've hired a lot of women. I was like, where are all these women coming from? Are they with our group?
That makes me want to.
No, they're new CCPers.
I finally want to run for CSM.
There you go. You can feel happy that there is now diversity, or at least more.
Poor joke. Sorry. Well, that's cool. I'm glad that they're hiring people. What I've heard is that people are pretty positive behind the scenes on Eve, like pretty pumped up. And if you think about it, it makes total sense, doesn't it? Like for the last couple of years, 3 years, they've been struggling with trying to find a way of broadening what CCP is. Then at a certain point, they have a bunch of sales during last year in the game to maybe make more profit. But clearly they're dressing themselves up to be sold. They are sold by somebody who actually is pretty good, I think, for CCP. It's a good match. It's not just some investors that want money. It's people who have a video game like Eve, who like a lot of the ideas that Eve has actually brought to gaming and see some kind of synergy. It's not just about money, it's about ideas. So they keep the CCP staff around and incentivize them tremendously to the tune of $200 million to stick around and to do a good job with Eve Online. So now they have money to do a good job and they have incentive to do a good job. I think that's a pretty good combination.
Yeah,
I agree with that. I mean, one of the things that I think we joked about last night was, I think it's more likely that Pearl Abyss will be corrupted by CCP than the other way around. I mean, CCP's been around a long time. They've been doing this for a long time. And the one thing that everybody in the MMO development community knows about Eve is we have the most stable game in terms of player base of any of the MMOs. Most MMOs, it's like mountains and troughs. If you look at their online activity, people come and then they go, and then they come and then they go. And for us, it's they came and there's like a basic steadiness of people that stick around for a long time. And guys like me and you guys are pretty common. People that have been playing for 10, 15 years and are still here. So I think that's why would you not want a stable company that can generate revenue year after year after year in a industry where hits and misses happen very often, and you're praying that you can find something that's stable, So for PA, as far as I can tell, this was a good investment for them. Why would they try to change what's working, or at least what appears to be working by their balance sheets? It doesn't make sense to me. That's why a lot of these conspiracy theories just don't add up to me, because it's like, you're not going to come in and kill your investment by trying to change their internal working when what they're doing is what made them attractive to you in the first place.
Thanks, CSM Brisk. By the way, it's a discussion, guys, so feel free to jump in if there's anything you want to say. It's an open forum. Or if you want to ask Brisk questions.
I'd say something, but I have no idea how hot or cold my voice is actually coming through on the stream. So if my voice is super low or super loud, let me know and I'll adjust accordingly.
Well, I thought I heard my name getting called out, so hello to whoever said it.
That was me.
John Carson.
Also, sorry, what?
John Carson, need to turn up a little bit or get closer to the mic when you do talk.
Does that work better?
Sure.
I mean, I'll adjust on the fly, but like, yeah, it's you know, I'm also doing things in the background as well. So, you know,
you're fine.
It's chill. It's a chill stream. Like this is meant to be our chill stream. After show and shit.
Okay, so when do you get started? Oh, Noisy Gamer's here.
Noisy.
You know, if you're gonna have a conspiracy theory, it should surrounding the price of Plex and everything. It should have been that CCP was raising the real life cost of Plex in the run up to the sale to PA, and that because we saw a run up in the real life price of Plex in the run up, and then once the sale was announced, then you saw that the real life price of Plex went back down.
I mean, at least that's a conspiracy theory that makes sense.
I'm sorry, not Plex, ISK.
Oh, okay. I was confused.
I mean, anything that they could do to plus up the bottom line before the sale, that would be a good conspiracy theory that would make sense. Yes.
And I have the graphs.
I had a theory that they were having a lot of sales last year in order to make the company look good for sales.
I mean, if we're talking
about support that,
if we're talking about some conspiracy theories, I was kind of wondering, like, because people were talking about this whole Loopbox kind of thing going on with the latest event, and I was kind of like, you know what? I definitely need to like look more into it because, you know, people are kind of knee-jerk reacting to the term loot boxes and like EVE Online and stuff because they've experienced loot boxes in other games and it's killed communities and it's killed games and stuff like that. So I don't know.
And that's what frustrates me because this isn't the Guardians Gala thing. I think was just a way to create something different and create a little randomness that, you know, everybody likes looting and getting something good, and you take your roll and you see how it works. You know, that's why loot boxes appeal to people. That's why other games that sell them directly for money can use that. But that's not what this was. You know, it was just part of the way that you got loot out of this gala thing. And frankly, I didn't particularly care for it. But it's not like they were charging people $2.99 to buy a key to open this box that they had to grind to get. You know, so I really don't understand, at least in that situation, why folks are upset about it.
So I'm going to call on some people, not to bring them out, but to point out that they hang out, or I've seen their writing in TIS Public. And I recognize Seraph Paid Kane. And I recognize Vertigo. Don't leave. Don't let me chase you out. You can stay quiet. Dynuxes? Bosun?
Hello, Matong. How can I help you?
Oh, no, you sound familiar. I think, yeah, I've seen you type before. How you doing?
Oh, very fine, sir. What about you?
Go. What country are you from?
From Baguette Land, of course, the best land. I'm French.
Yeah.
France. Of course it's going to be France if he's going to say Baguette Land. Jesus Christ.
And then I recognize Blackbird, spelled with a 4, BL4 CK Bird.
Yeah.
You recently wrote me about something. I guess it was private, so I shouldn't say it out loud, but I forgot what it was, if it was something you wanted to discuss.
Not really discuss. It was about that the remnants of Evoke are now in Lamp, as you
That's
mentioned.
right.
I think it was Fate of Alliance tournament art or recording.
And you yeah, go ahead.
Basically, the remnants are now, at least with one of the leaders that is still in game, are not in Lumpy. There were many corps split off that were part of Evoke, but the leadership and the leader of Evoke.corp is now in Init.
So that's a very important point because I've said it a few times incorrectly, and I'm glad you corrected me. And that was that the Evoke, the remnants of Evoke, actually went into Initiative, and they went into Lumpy maybe for a short time, but really it's Initiative, not Lumpy, that has the people that I guess genealogically go back to Evoke, and Evoke is a great German alliance. Evoke and Ewoks was, I think, their like trainer alliance.
Yeah, it was like I am for Init.
Yeah, you guys are in Init Initiative, Init Associates, or Init Proper? Which one is
Init
it?
Proper.
Oh, okay. So you guys are with Pando, who is also he's German, right?
Yeah.
Oh, cool. So here comes another Frenchman.
Love it.
The propensity of Init fleets end up being just German like language fleets is going to be quite like it's trending higher and higher. I'm concerned because I don't speak German.
I think
Go ahead.
sorry. I think at the time being we have 5 pure German corps within it.
Yeah.
Oh, that's news, and it's becoming.
We like that. We could use some more U.S. time zone corps, but I'll take more EU time.
Well, and it seemed to be the place to go, like for a while. I think now Skill U seems like the hot place to go, don't you think?
Skill U's sort of like old school PL without the elitism spurg that has been a problem for PL recently. I've watched a few videos of theirs, and it's like you'll see them in a very high stress situation, and comms are calm, comms are quiet, everyone's doing what they need to do, and it's attracting a lot of the elitist sort of players into their playstyle because these are the guys that are going to be dropping subcap fleets with supers with XYZ all the time.
Yeah, my corp was just left PL for Skill U.
What's your corp?
Highland Everest.
Oh, you're in Peak, right?
My main is in Peak.
Where are your alts?
That name is my alt's name.
Oh, okay.
I love how you I love how you ask that so innocently and casually, like, "Oh, where are your alts?" Like just open up.
Well, most people know not to answer a question.
Right now, I'm in J10651. Come and get me.
Yeah. See you in a million years. Take care.
Yeah, I think I'm 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 jumps from wherever you are.
Here's a question. Sorry to sidetrack the conversation.
No,
regarding the drifter holes, they've been bugged, shall we say, for quite a while now, and there's been no real, shall we say, information from CCP regarding this. Is this something that they are saying is a bug, or is it something?
How are they bugged? Just as a
Yeah, I think I have an answer, but go ahead. How are they bugged?
The last few times that I've been inside them, so they're designed to have multiple nullsec connections along with a C2. The reason why I'm saying they're bugged is they're meant to have a maximum of about 25 connections. We've been seeing around 90 plus coming out of each of these holes.
Ah, right. You see, this is
Seraph's right, and we have brought that up. I have brought that up specifically to CCP because we've been using drifter wormholes quite a bit, and I think it might be us that's causing the problem. And I think
I think it's a good thing.
Yeah, I thought it was drifter magic, and that was a pretty neat thing.
I was going to say like that. That sounds very much like a bug that seems to fortunately be very much preferable for the people using them. So those sorts of ones don't tend to get reported as fast.
It's the content provider. It's a content generator. You get like we've had skill. Sorry, go ahead, Brisk.
I said we love them, and you're right. It's great to have connections and be able to move around a lot, and getting used to how to do that is the thing. I think one of the problems we did see was that some of these wormholes were like ghosts, where you'd land on them and then they would instantly pop. So it was hard to tell which ones were legit and which ones were bad. But I think that's gotten fixed. But yeah, the number, you're right, Sir, the number has gone up pretty considerably. And I don't know whether that's intended or not, but we've at least brought it out.
As a frequent wormhole delver, I can vouch for that. With the numbers, there was a hole I dealt with the other day, and before I knew it, I was on a misadventure through 80 holes.
There was an interesting conversation going on after the last show regarding this, about it possibly being a lore event of, well, you hear of the new fanfest of being the invasion, and is it, tied together with something like the Drifters, Triglavian, Sancha situation?
Well, that's, it's funny. If nobody had said this is a bug, you might have had some great lore tinfoiling coming out of it. But what I'd heard early on was it was a bug that, and this is not official, this is from experienced wormholers, that it was something that creeps up, some kind of a bug that creeps up once a year, every year and a half. So it's kind of been known to happen. Why it's happening, how it's being triggered might have to do with how Initiative is using the wormholes. I don't know.
It's not just Initiative using them. Skill, you were using them heavily. Test have used them heavily in the past. So it's not just Initiative that are called.
Well, I think Brisk did kind of say, like, he thinks we may be causing it, but he doesn't know. It's just that we've been utilizing them quite a lot. Like that's the thing. Like if it's a case of it's a tiny bug that only propagates once every, like, I don't know, 10, 20, 30, 40 times that, a wormhole is used like a drifter wormhole is used, then yeah, we're probably causing more than, other groups because we're utilizing, those wormholes. But, it could be completely unrelated, Sorry, what was that, Bruce?
Well, Pano and I talked about it because he's been doing our wormhole. When we use drifter wormholes, it's variably on one of his whaling fleets. And he came to me, I want to say 2 weeks ago, and said, "Hey, we're starting to notice as we do this a lot that the numbers are creeping up steadily." And I said, "Well, have you bugged it yet?" And he told me, "Well, I haven't put a bug report or anything like that yet." But I said, "All right, what are the numbers at? Where should they be?" And he said, normally we get 25, and now we're getting like 80. And now in Conflux, there's like 100 connections right now. I'm like, well, just bug that and get me the bug report. So I did that. I took it over to CCP, and they looked at it. And I can't go back and forth with what they said and everything, but it seemed like there was something going on. I don't know whether it has been resolved or not. But yeah, there's definitely something going on. That's not normal.
I remember being on the receiving end of an Initiative Stuka fleet in Brave Space, helping out our brave allies. That was an interesting couple of hours, all resulting from those drifter wormholes. So I say keep them.
They're not exactly, they're not super simple to navigate either. Like you kind of think like, oh, they're drifter wormholes. They operate like normal wormholes. But you can't fit an absolute ton of stuff through them. Well, it's not really the case, because you do end up getting drifter battleships, like, roaming around those wormholes, like, and if you bring a fleet in and accidentally, stay on that hole a little bit too long, they will start absolutely wrecking face.
Yeah, they're not. You can't treat them like normal wormholes. You've got to be very careful with the way you approach them and use them, because one wrong move and you're guaranteed to lose at least the initial ship that landed, if not parts of fleets, very quick.
Yeah, and you don't land at 0 on them. Even if you probe them out, even if you have a guy like on 0 and everyone warps to him at 0, you don't land at 0 on the wormhole. Like, it's like entering
a Dead Space pocket.
Yeah, it's like entering a Dead Space pocket. You end up you land at the entrance that the devs have decided that every single ship warping to anything in there is going to land at, and it's like 70 something of the wormhole, which can really screw with you.
Well, what else do you guys think is news? And we can still go on with this, but I just want to make sure that it's not a single topic, not one guy at a time, but what else is there out there that let's say we didn't talk about? I'm sure there's a ton of stuff.
I imagine this probably is, yeah, but I don't know.
Well,
the floor is open to everybody. Like I see Bard is here, but like I haven't heard him once yet, which concerns me because I think there might be an imposter that's controlling Bard's computer.
Bard ghost.
See? So he's lighting it up, but he's not speaking. It's not actually transmitting. So problems on his side.
Oh, new asteroid effects. So we're being asked about the new asteroid effects. Have you guys, anybody seen those?
I've experienced them a little bit. They're pretty cool. I actually quite like them.
What actually happens?
They kind of they slowly reduce in size and that kind of thing, which looks really cool. Like I've experienced not doing a survey scan and then warping to something which I'm fairly certain has a whole bunch of stuff, but like my corp mate previously had mined almost everything out of it, and so I've landed, put out a W2, gone into indie mode, taken out my excavators, put it on it, and it's popped in like literally 2 seconds, and I've gone, oh, for God's sake. So that doesn't happen anymore because the roid is tiny now, if that happens.
Can you hear me now?
We can.
Okay, yeah. Something had reset on my Discord. No, I didn't realise I was trying to speak earlier. I was just saying with regard to the drift wormholes, as far as I was aware, it was law related. But
you're there going,
that's blown out of the water.
You're there going, well, these guys are very rude. They're trying to talk right over me every single time I start speaking.
To be fair, nobody spoke over me.
Yeah. Sorry, Bart.
Oh, that was weird.
So again, about the effect. Sorry, Noisy. I'll yield in a second. But the effect, is it a constant changing of the asteroid, or is it something that happens just at the end when it's gone, when you've mined it all?
I've never noticed the effect because I'm too busy, looking at DScan and looking at local and all this other stuff to actually watch the asteroid.
Okay. All right. Another question here in chat. I'm looking at chat. Is highsec market wars test failing to take down other markets a few times now? Will they have to share the offshoring income? It opposed there actually right now having to share it because they have so many interference. I don't know. Should I describe like what's going on so that people can kind of understand it that maybe haven't seen it yet? Or can somebody describe what's going on in the highsec market wars? We call it cornering the offshore markets.
Well, I have some grudgingly...
Where's Ron?
Well, yeah, where is Ron? Like, Ron was here like a little while ago. Maybe he's on a fleet or something.
Ron's good at it. Yeah.
But,
well...
Yeah.
Go ahead, McLeod.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, essentially, it's like, when it comes to... It's NPC sales tax versus player-created sales tax. And what that means is you can put a market up in highsec and undercut the NPC sales tax. And people will flock to, potentially, like, so long as it's in a decent position, people will potentially flock to that market or that citadel with that market to be able to not lose as much money to sales tax that they would do if they went on an NPC market. And so you have these kind of weird wars of, basically offshoring wars where people try and blow up each other's citadels with these markets in to remove markets that are undercutting their own lower market tax.
So they undercut the NPC market, and then somebody comes around and undercuts them because they drop to, say, the test is dropping to a respectable 0.3% tax on whatever you buy, and that accumulates to 500 to a trillion ISK per month just in tax revenue. So you can imagine how much, that's only 0.3%. You can imagine how much ISK is going through not even JITA, but this is just a tax haven perimeter, the system next to JITA. So what happens is, so Test has to compete with the guys trying to undercut them. And those guys are coming in. It's actually I Choose You, who was there before but got knocked out by Test. I Choose You drops stuff, and at 0%, where they don't make money, but they just undercut Test to make their money, to lessen their money. Or they drop to 0.1 to make a little bit of money underneath the Test. And Test has been forced to fight those off daily, right? They're constantly fighting those off. And because of war deck mechanics, sometimes it's hard to destroy them in time. Therefore, I Choose You and other groups, if there are other groups, can constantly have an undercutting effect on even a 0.3 tax rate. So Test has been forced to lower themselves to that level, 0.1. And to stay competitive price-wise, to have people continue to come to their Keepstar to buy stuff, they've had to drop to 0.1. How long can they sustain it? I mean, at a certain point, that 500 to a trillion ISK is going to be shrunken to 250 billion to 400 billion. And at a certain point, it doesn't become worth their effort to constantly be vigilant. So that's the war that's going on there. It's both economic and military.
I mean, the thing I see is now that they're at the 0.1, they don't really have to fend off I Choose You as much as they were. They just have to take him out every so often so that the safer option is theirs. Because at that point, that's the only benefit you're getting, unless you're one of those that doesn't want to fund Test by not using their Keepstar or something.
Well, if you want to try to like go into like volumes and stuff, in the Forge, the Plex, the average amount of ISK traded for Plex each day in the Forge is a trace over 6 trillion a day. So if you can corner that and make 0.1%, you're talking, I don't know, maybe 4 to 5 billion a day.
How much did you say goes through? That's amazing.
6 trillion per day is 6 trillion ISK is traded per day for Plex.
Oh my god.
Yeah, it's noisy. Have you done a breakdown of how much that is for SP farms? Because me and someone else were throwing some off-the-cuff numbers.
I can't, honestly. I know that so far this month in the Forge, there's been almost 4.7 trillion ISK a day traded for skill injectors.
We were throwing some rough numbers we know about, and we were coming to about 60 trillion a month of the Plex sales just for SP farms.
Oh, okay. Why do they need? Did you say Plex? Why do they need
Plex
that?
sales. So the cheapest way, basically, to do it is extractors are not bought on the market. You buy them using Plex. You save yourself a couple $100 million a time, I believe it is. I haven't checked it in a while. And obviously that all tallies up. The Plex...
Sorry, this is because the extractors are usually always 150 or 15% less if you buy them with Plex?
Yes, it's something like that. Mm-hmm. So obviously the cheaper way is to go through that, and it's something like 1,120 Plex. For that, you need 11 a month for free characters on a fully spec'd account, plus the 500 for the sub. You're looking nearly 1,600 Plex an account per month, which when we were scaling it up to what it was at its peak of nearly 25,000 characters involved, was some crazy high numbers. Like 60 trillion in Plex sales a month.
By the way, that Plex... Oh, go ahead.
And I was going to say, that's not even including MCTs on top of that.
That Plex sale that just came through, by the way, sorry, not Plex sale, was it? Yeah, Plex sale, right? They introduced, I think it was a 10% for bulk buying of Plex. So you could buy a $40 purchase a Plex for like $35 or something like that. But it seems like that dented the market. In other words, it put a lot of Plex in the market, so the price went down. But that's already recovered. Or it could be that the weekend is when a lot of people buy stuff in EVE. If you notice, the weekends are actually usually peaks for people trading. So it might just be like the pressure of the demand over the weekend has driven the price pretty much back to where it was.
I told them when we talked about this at the last summit, I said, look, do your sales on Fridays, at least in the U.S., and you will guarantee somebody is going to have extra money and spend more of it. They were doing like Tuesday to Thursday things, and I was like, guys, Friday's payday in the U.S. Let's do them on Friday.
How'd they react to that?
I think they laughed and said, yeah, we try to do that. It was just a question of timing. But I said, yeah, if you guys put up a sale on a Friday, I guarantee you I will buy something. So, and I think a lot of people are the same way. So do that. And so far, that's what they've been doing. So maybe they were listening to me, or maybe it's just coincidence. But I know today I was sitting in Iceland. I was like, wait a minute, there's a sale. I got to buy something. So it's useful.
I mean, it seems that they are timing their sales for the Plex market, not calendar days or holidays or anything. I'm just from that's just the tinfoil here that they're trying to manipulate the market that way. But yeah, it doesn't seem to be working that well.
So if the higher the Plex prices are, the less profitable skill farms are going to be. The last that I had heard from my friends who do skill farms is that they were taking like a 30 million loss a month based on the current ISK prices. Is that what you're seeing? Or Bart? I mean, whoever you guys are doing.
I'll let Noisy answer first, and then I'll say what I've seen.
I haven't been trying to keep track of what the skill farmers are doing. At least how much profit they would be making. I do notice that it used to be that the price of skill extractors was totally tied to the real world price and everything. It used to always be like between 412 and 415 a pop when you convert, when you do all the conversions and stuff. It's starting to fluctuate now, and it's like kind of weird why it's doing that. I haven't really figured it out. Maybe it's sales, but I'd actually have to like run some numbers to see, because I don't think that it would be profitable. I did maybe at the edge. That's just my feeling, though.
Yeah, it's very close. Some people with really great skills for sales are dodging a lot of taxes in places and can just be above at like 100 million profit a month. Others that don't have that are losing. I don't know if it's 50 million or whatever, but most of it is unprofitable. There's the few that are still profitable. Jeronica did make a good point in here, though. The large farms that have large stockpiles of cash to base off of bought their skill extractors and MCTs months ago when it was still cheap. So this is just even more profit for them now.
That makes sense.
A lot of marketeering is being able to hold out, because if you buy a bunch of stuff, that money's frozen until you can unload it. So if you don't have a lot of money, if you're not very liquid, then in order to take advantage of the next area, you have to sell stuff off maybe sometimes before you want to. So the guys that are really successful are the guys that can sit on something for 6 months to 2 years. And then when they sell it, then they're making like 100, 200% profit on all the stuff they bought. But it can take a long time, and a lot of people can't wait that out.
I mean, the people, and here's some tinfoil, the people that bought in the run up to the sale to Pearl Abyss, they're the ones that are making out like bandits now, because the price is really risen for Plex compared to back then.
Yeah. Well, I think 6 months ago I was screwed because I had all my investments I was literally hitting like zero ISK at a certain point because all investments were in injectors and Plex, mostly Plex. And so, but I couldn't stay there, right? Like I had no money to function. So I had to slowly start liquidating stuff. Luckily, all the prices were going back up because I was stuck there for like 6 or 7 months because the prices were so bottomed out on Plex and injectors. So I was starting to sell stuff on the incline, and that works out great, right? Because you always want to feather your sales of stuff. You don't want to just dump all your stuff when the price finally recovers a little bit, because you don't know where the top of the recovery is. And this is a prime example. You put a little out at a time and you keep chasing it up. And I literally ran out of Plex and injectors. And now the prices are like really high. So I would have made an additional 10, 20% had I just been able to outlast that giant incline that we're seeing right now in the marketplace. By the way, the opposite's true. When you buy, you don't want to buy when the price hits a low number that you think you want to buy at. You want to see it bounce back up a little bit, and then you know, like, well, okay, the downturn is over. I better get in on this. So occasionally you'll see a spike on a downturn. You'll see a spike where people thought it was over and it was starting to recover, and then it goes down again. But a lot of times you don't want to really buy stuff until you're pretty sure it's on its way back up. That's just some basic advice. I don't even know if it's good advice, but it's what I use.
I mean, the real world price, and Brisk is probably like loving the sales now because he buys Plex, but the real world price of a skill injector has basically gone down 6.6% over the course, since New Year's Day. So if you're buying Plex to buy skill injectors, then it's actually, it's actually cheaper for you now.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Oh, I'm loving it. I mean, the ISK that you can get for a single Plex now. I remember selling last year when the sales were going through. It was as low as like 2.7 million, and I was like, "This is ridiculous." And now it's up to like 3, 4, 3, 5, pretty average, and that's great. So it's I don't have to buy the $250 pack anymore. I can only buy the $100 one, and I get a good boost.
Yeah, before the sale, you were getting probably 3.6 per Plex.
Well, I think that was one of the comments the guy was making with his video, was that now is a high incentive for people to pay money to CCP to get in-game items because they're worth so much. And somebody said there wouldn't be any sales until after tax season, because tax season is a lot of times where people get discretionary funds, right? That tax return comes and you're like, oh, I have a couple extra $1,000 that I didn't think about or budget on, so I'm going to just play with that money, and they actually throw it into their hobby, and this would be one of those places. Yeah, so you don't want suppressed prices.
That would be where CCP goes, I see you have some money. Here are some Plex that you might like.
But I doubt that, because they don't even know to release a sale on Friday. So how would they know about it?
Right. That's the thing. I would be very surprised if the marketing folks were that savvy to say, all right, guys, let's do an April 15th.
Yeah,
especially since people get refunds from January to April anyway.
Ace would have a lot to say about that with regards to the marketing strategy of CCP to some degree.
Yeah.
They have a strategy?
He's here.
There is no conceivable strategy that I have noticed, because they have missed several major holidays in the last year.
I thought the Black Friday sales were kind of weak too, weren't they?
I thought they were pretty weak.
You gotta give people a reason to buy. Like, okay, 10%, meh, and for the love of God, what is with this we're not including the $20 pack in things. Like, people are so cheap when they go to Vegas that they'll drink water. Let the $20 pack, because that's going to be where you're going to make your money.
Some of us just like water,
I mean, yeah, but it's Vegas.
Yeah. Water is healthy.
Some people are teetotal, man. Some people have a serious issue, and they need to keep themselves on the straight and narrow. Admittedly, they shouldn't be in Vegas, but
Yeah, that just sounds like a recipe for disaster going in general. Then
there's
I got a gambling problem, so I'm going to go to Vegas, but not gamble.
There's actually kind of a story behind that whole 1999 not getting the love and the $39.99 pack getting love. It goes back, I think, to when CCP actually would send out game time codes through the mail, and it was cheaper for them to just send out two. It was more profitable for them to send out 2 months at a time instead of 1 month at a time. And it seems that emphasis on the 2 months of game time has just carried on as an institutional memory.
Canaris, you know a little something about CCP and making money.
What am I supposed to say?
Considering your background as one of their marketers, nothing. I don't expect you to say anything, actually.
Well,
let me ask you. This is a fair question. How aware are they financially? How aware are they? They're in Iceland. How aware are they of United States, like buying practices, holiday schedule, stuff like that?
Not too bad, although much more aware than we are of theirs. How many of you know when payday is in Iceland? It is once a month on the first of the month. So people have to watch their money.
Wow.
Yeah, they have it much tougher in some ways than Americans do. So, these things come into account. They try. I'm always really, really surprised if I see a sale end before the first of the month.
Oh, they always go. They always go over the first of the month?
Well, they should do if they want to make money from it. Otherwise, I look at them and I think, obviously, they care more about the dates of the holiday than they care about the money they're leaving on the table by not going over the first of the month. Now,
I mean, it's only like, what, 300,000 people that live in Iceland?
329,000.
So, I mean,
that's not a lot.
Fair, my city is bigger than that.
They're not the only country.
That's a third of the size of my county.
They're not the only country in Europe that is the first of the month.
Yeah, but they had a football team that beat the entirety of England, so that's understandable.
So European places do the same thing.
Well, some of them do, first of the month, and where they tended to run into not knowing too many of the details was like China or something. They knew what Lunar New Year was, and because that's big and gets out there, but they'd have to rely on Chinese partners for the rest of the picture. Yeah, it's I don't know sometimes why they pick the dates that they pick. I do know that everyone keeps an eye on everyone else's companies to see what their games are doing. So when Plex worked out really well, a number of other companies made Plex or versions of Plex. I know about stuff like that. And when skill injectors worked for one corp, a couple others of them tried it in their games too, by the way.
I'm talking about real corporations, real gaming company.
Yeah, the game.
Well, I remember when you started out. Exactly. Canaris' point is exactly right there. It's small and everybody copies what everybody else does. Because EVE was like, for the longest time, the only game where you could pay for your subscription using in-game currency, and now a lot of them do. Like when I first started playing WoW, that wasn't something you could do, and now it's something that they do all the time. So it's interesting.
Yeah, it was interesting because I think the second company that I saw do this was SOE with EverQuest and EverQuest 2. And I wonder who was working there.
But it wasn't the second one. It was the second one you saw, but you missed that Tryon had done it also. And there was a version, kind of a little bit crazy version that there was another company, NC Soft did. Not NC Dot. NC Soft. No. Shoot. I'm trying to pull old things out
NC Soft did Guild Wars, didn't they?
Guild Wars, yes. Guild Wars implemented a version of it also. Not quite the same, but they did too. And then of course, there was a version cooking for World of Darkness MMO, but that didn't make it. 38 Studios had a version in theirs, but Kingdoms of Amalur never made it to market. And then SOE, we did Chrono, and then we did WoW tokens in Blizzard.
Blizzard lost a bunch of people, right? And not Activision Blizzard lost 8% of their workforce.
Yeah,
comes out. Was that like
almost 800 people?
Yeah, 800 people because they're big. They're like almost 10,000 people, like 9,600 people. So 8% came out to about 800 people, and you knew some of those guys.
Oh yeah, I knew people in Blizzard. I knew people in Activision. I knew people in King. Maybe you've heard of King. They're the ones. They're famous for a game called Candy Crush, and they are part of the Activision Blizzard family too. I knew people in the King actually shut down 2 offices. They shut down their San Francisco office, and they shut down their Seattle, Washington suburb-based mobile game development team that was out there too. And I had a friend in that also. He's looking for a new job and he's got to move his family now.
Oh, that's a rough industry.
Yeah. That's hard on the entire industry because now there's everyone else who's been laid off by any of the other game companies, or suddenly there's a wash of other applicants fighting over spots. And the industry has to find places for 800 people, or those people have to leave the industry.
Yeah,
it's not that big a place.
Yeah, I had a few friends that worked for Blizzard. They're all gone now, but yeah, I think all of them have left the gaming industry. It seems like entertainment industry in general it's hard. It's a tough industry. Films, music, even advertising for those things, gaming, of course. And it's so interesting that so many people are drawn to it, which kind of complicates things too, because now you have a ton of people who are interested, a ton of people who will work jobs for less money than the experienced guy. And so it just becomes a real compounded situation.
Hey guys, not to interrupt, but I'm gonna head out. We're gonna go get some dinner and plot for tomorrow. So I'll talk to you all.
One quick thing, Brisk, you guys are actually starting the summit tomorrow?
Yep, tomorrow morning, bright and early. We're meeting with the leadership team, and then they're doing a big presentation to us in front of all the devs to just introduce us, so we can talk to folks. So
thanks for talking to us. See you later, man. Thanks. Bye.
Thank you.
Briscoe Ball represent.
My favorite part of the CSM stuff was dinner and drinking afterwards. That was the best. That should come as no surprise to anyone who knows me. But I didn't sit in on the meetings all day. I would just come to the parts that were marketing relevant, and I'd go in, and I usually have to do like one piece of one presentation, and that was it. Sit in on a couple more. But I used to take the group out to dinner each night, and then we'd pick some place to go and have a couple, beers after dinner for anyone who wanted to stay up, which was everyone. And that was my favorite part, and that's the part I get nostalgic for.
And the end of the Winter Summit is usually the official beginning of the CSM campaign seasons for all of those that were wondering.
Right after, I thought it was going to be right after FanFest. It's before FanFest, isn't it?
There's no FanFest this time.
Oh, right. Of course.
It's not just AT, bro.
Right. It's going to be a very interesting year, isn't it?
Yeah. Very different. There was, 2010, we had a year with no FanFest also. 2009 or 2010. It was the 2010. We skipped it that year. We just didn't have money. We didn't have message. We didn't have enough. We just weren't ready. Mm-hmm. And then we did it for 2011, if I recall. And then we had the 30% layoff. Lovely.
And my first FanFest was 2012.
Thanks.
So is what you're saying here, Canaris, is you're feeling that in the air again?
No.
Okay, that's
a different world. Money is not super tight. If you look at CCP right now, they're making Eve. That's the only game that's live. And really, that's the only game in production. They have a couple of other really small experiments going on in pre-production, but that's not a large number of people. That's not a large amount of dollars or ISK or whatever you want to call it. It's not a lot of money. So and psychologically, they've got a Pearl Abyss backstop that is a little bit of a breathing room for the finance team.
Yeah, I was going to ask a follow-up on that one, Canaris. I meant to ask it to you in Vegas a couple of years back, but it's always kind of been curious for me. Why do you think it is that when CCP tries to go off on another one of these efforts, why it always seems to come to nothing? Where EVE Online is their one thing that they do, and they do really well. However, when they try to branch out, it seems to just falter.
Well, I think every game company has trouble making big hits, and they some game companies are famous for their big hits, and we tend to forget that they ever did anything that wasn't a big hit. But they either put out stuff and killed it, or they killed it before it got to the put out phase. Like Blizzard killed off Titan. They still managed to make Overwatch out of the pieces of it, the scraps left over afterwards. But that was, now, if you look at CCP, the World of Darkness MMO, in my opinion, was a really good idea. There are plenty of people who would like to RP role play being a vampire in an MMO. I've seen evidence of that going back to Meridian 59. But they weren't building it well. They weren't building it well thought out. The chunks that I saw, the artwork might be beautiful, but it wasn't scalable because they didn't put any polygon limit on the artists. They were making a demo, basically. I can't talk about stuff like that. I'm going to stop. But
darn, that was good.
You mind
Dust 5-1. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Just go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, this is just my opinion, but I feel as though when it comes to CCP and just, why they have not been fairly successful in anything other than Eve is because, they don't really have a competitor in the sense of what Eve is, right? Like, there's nothing out there that is capable of being a competitor in the genre in which Eve sits at, in my opinion, right? But if you look at things like Eve Valkyrie, Dusk, there's something out there that's a better version of what they tried to create. And most people just went out and played it. And Dusk specifically failed because of a whole bunch of other outside influences. But honestly, in my opinion, I feel as though that's why you don't really see them being successful in any of these other genres in which they try to dip their toes in. It's just there's too much. There's the market is full, right? Eve, there's nothing out there. There's nothing that I can say. Well, I like Eve, but fucking Elite Dangerous is better. No, absolutely not. I mean, again, just my opinion, but that's what I think.
First-person shooters are super hard to make. You have to balance them perfectly. They have to feel a certain way. And that takes either it takes lots and lots of practice and making a lot of games like it, or it takes a lot of hard pre-production where you're just going on and on again on just refining your movement, your camera angle, and your aiming. You need to do that over and over and over again ad nauseum. Upper management will quickly lose any interest in the tuning process, so the team has to be super committed to it and really feel it, or have some guy on there who's some kind of like genius at it to hit it. You can't rely on the genius, so it has to be planned into your development schedule that you're just going to iterate on it forever. And then if you match that to, I'm trying to do something that's cross game platform. I want PC and console to talk to each other. Holy crap, that was years ahead of its time. I sat in on the meetings with Microsoft and with PlayStation with Xbox and with PlayStation to try to get permission to do Dust 514. Microsoft said sure, and then gave a list of demands that were unabsorbable. You just couldn't do it. Impossible. But Sony said, let's think about it and be flexible. And then Sony coughed up some money. So it went on PlayStation 3. Well, they would rather have put it on Xbox, and they thought about Xbox first. And they went to them first, and they really wanted it to work. But Sony was the option that had money and said yes. So then they made it work on PlayStation 3. But right at the end of the lifespan of the platform, and they just didn't have the budget and dev resources to upgrade it and migrate it to 4. That ended up being a massive limitation factor. It couldn't grow slowly like Eve did. And they couldn't do the horrible tuning cycle to get the feel of it right while it was live because they ran out of runway. Anyway, the augmented reality and virtual reality stuff, again, their timing on the market, not great. But that was all Skunkworks projects in-house. That was never intentional CCP, okay, we're going to do this next. No.
So it wasn't them at all putting all their assets behind it. It was, we're going to experiment with some technology, see where it leads us type thing.
Actually, Dust 514 was that case too. Some internal players that played FPOs, first-person shooters, whatever, FPSs, they came and said, here's what we did. We put some Eve artwork on it. Look at this. It's cool. And they seduced upper management into making it a product. But it wasn't a plan. It was an internal Skunkworks project. Same thing with the VR.
Talking about cross-platform, I heard about an internal project at Microsoft where they were going to go totally cross-platform with Xbox and PC games about, I guess this was maybe 15 years ago. And they abandoned it when they found out during their play testing that PC players we're always slaughtering the console gamers because of the greater control the keyboard and mouse have.
Yeah, keyboard and mouse fidelity in terms of control, like finesse, is far superior. But I would say that, you know, having been a DOS player on PlayStation before as well, like I had a keyboard and mouse working with Dust on PlayStation, so you know, it was a thing.
So, am I one of the only people that loved Dust?
Oh, dude, I love Dust as well. Like,
I thought it was a really interesting concept myself.
Yeah, it wasn't a problem of if people liked it or not, because people did. It's just the placement of it was just wrong. You know, like I think it would have had way more survivability if it would have started out on PC and then moved over the PlayStation or something along those lines, or if it just would have been released later and got released on the PS4. I think
it would have had a lot more legs
lifespan.
Yeah, it would have had a lot more legs then.
No, I don't know. I mean, it would have just seemed like an outgrowth of Eve, you know, an enhancement for Eve players. But would new people have been attracted to Dust if it was on PC with all the competitors that PCs have, as far as first-person shooters at that time?
That's true. There's a lot of FPS market oversaturation.
Well, I think the integration of the game would have, you know, allowed certain other people who enjoy certain other, you know, aspects of, you know, first person shooters to, you know, influence Eve in a certain way. Like I was actually, you know, talking to a couple of my friends about this the other day, you know, and I think this is I think they're trying to create another FPS, like CCP is trying to create another FPS. I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but I heard that, you know, they were going to be adding some aspect of, you know, you being able to do kind of like raids on stations and stuff like that and affect the timers on stations. And
that was Project Nova. At the initial release of it, it was, this is Project Nova. Here's some screenshots of fighting in station, etc. And then it actually came to a point where the last FanFest they released like closed beta versions of it for people to play, and a lot of the feedback they got from players was it's unimaginative, it's not what people expected, and it's not really doing anything different than any other thing. So why would I play this versus PUBG, Black Ops, CSGO? There's no unique selling point to it, because this is where Dust 514 had the advantage was your fights actually affected other things as well, and you would, in theory, coordinate with far more people.
Yeah,
Project Nova, in its initial, you know, example of what it was going to do, because they said the cross integration with Eve was not going to be a thing at release. So it wasn't going to be like just 514. It was going to be a completely separate universe in the initial release. They said it may happen in the future that we integrate it into Eve, but we're not promising anything. And that was a lot of people going, what's the point?
Well, I would say that needed to be their selling point, right? Because, you know, like you mentioned earlier, you know, the initial players for that game are going to be mostly Eve players, right? It's going to be mostly people who already, you know, understand the lore to a certain extent, but want to, you know, allow a certain level of, you know, more in-depthness to their gameplay, right? You know, for that integration to actually mean something, right? And then more people, you know, along more time will actually get involved, and, you know, from that point, the regular, you know, Eve player base and, you know, maybe we're going to say, you know, the Nova player base would be able to integrate and coordinate with each other. And, you know, the Nova community will grow alongside the Eve community, and they could actually grow each other. But I think that should have been their number one selling point, other than just, you know, well, we're making an FPS and it's based off of Eve. If you like it, then play it. Well, if you don't, well, you know, it doesn't have any integration with Eve at this point. The only kind of intersection would be just the fact that it's based off of Eve. So, you know, I mean, we're essentially agreeing with each other, but just saying it in two different ways.
See, I always, like, with the whole Nova kind of thing, like the promise of what they said with Nova, like, from what I saw with the testings that they showed in Vegas, like it wasn't anywhere near what they what they were promising as such. Like it literally looked like, you know, every other normal FPS shooter that's, you know, in an urban environment. Like, to me,
Unreal Tournament 2004 with Eve skins.
Yeah. Essentially, it was kind of like, oh, you know, it's nice having this sort of like skybox kind of thing that's going on, but it doesn't. There's no aspect of that skybox or what's going on in that skybox that affects, like, you know, players on the ground or the players shooting, you know, the thing. And then I'm there thinking to myself, like, you know, the idea was you're fighting on the hulls of, you know, various different ships in Eve. Like, why do those holes have like staircases and like random rooms, like, you know, and hallways and stuff like that, just bolted onto the surface of this ship? Like, there's to me, it felt like there's no logical reason for, you know, this kind of environment to be on a ship. So why did you place it like that? It was such a generic kind of formulation of a PvP game.
Well, I kind of want to give him a bit of leeway on that aspect, because, you know, well, the regular ships, the ships that we fly in Eve, you know, capsuleers, most of our ship are controlled by, you know, the capsuleer. But NPC ships, which, you know, we could, you know, debate whether or not that's what they're trying to base off of, those ships are supposedly supposed to be, you know, fully crewed by people, not by capsuleers. So, you know, while my crew might be 20, you know, his crew might be 150, because, you know, he's an NPC, he's not a capsuleer. So, you know, I guess in that scenario, like, their ships could have, you know, the maintenance areas and stuff like that, you know, on the ship itself, especially when we're talking about like Mimitar ships, which are shield based. So, you know, they're not going to be as sturdy on the outside as, say, you know, like an armor based ship like, you know, Amar. So, I mean, it just, like, I don't know. I think it goes a little bit deeper than that.
Well, if you watch the trailer that Matterall currently has playing, it actually shows you what ship it's based on. It's actually based, the map that they were demoing was based on the Maelstrom, which, as we know, is a shield ship. It's Minmatar. They don't believe in armor, as we all know. So, yeah, I can sort of, you know, as you say, we can sort of, okay, bit of disbelief, okay, we'll let it fly. You know, it's a Maelstrom. Yes, this might exist. But it's the fundamental problem of you don't have a selling point that makes everyone go, let's play this versus everything else. You know, it was a reskinned, average Rainbow Six Siege, Unreal Tournament, that sort of thing. There was nothing different, nothing unique about it that Dust 514 had that would make people play it versus something else.
So I think my issue, and this comes down to just generalized tactic. If I'm able to punch through an enemy's shield and drop men onto the deck, why would I not use that technology to drop large bombs? Like, I mean,
pretty good point.
just putting it out there. If you can penetrate somebody's shields, and it's a shield-based ship like a Maelstrom, they don't have any armor, so, you know, boom. That was my biggest issue, was I was like, I don't know why we're fighting over this, because unless we're planning to take the ship, you know, it doesn't really serve any purpose. Otherwise, we're just here to blow it up, and then we're all going to die anyways.
Well, you know how in Eve, right? You know, once your shields get to a certain point, you start to, you know, overpin the shield and actually go towards the armor. Well, in that situation, you know, maybe they were waiting toward, you know, to where the shields were at a certain point, and then using, you know, the shield strength to be able to overpin the shield to actually land the troops.
Do Eve players play other games?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh yeah, dude.
Yes.
I play PUBG like most days. Thinking about getting.
wonder.
Sorry.
I wonder because it just seems like Eve players would take a different hobby rather than video gaming if they weren't playing Eve.
The other games.
Yeah, I see. I'm speaking from a test perspective here. Like, there's a lot of people that will play like a wide variety of games. Like, you get your average PUBG, you know, that sort of stuff. You get other people playing Stellaris. You'll see people play Subnautica. You know, anything that's flavor of the month. There's quite a big following with it inside the EVE community. Like you always hear about the memes of PL going off to play Dota 2 instead of logging in, that sort of stuff. So there's got to be a grain of truth behind those sorts of memes.
In real life, I'm a long-haul trucker, so I'm currently behind the wheel on Interstate 84 in Oregon. When I get home on my one day off, I don't always have time to play EVE, so it's usually World of Tanks or World of Warships.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I'm not gonna lie, they are some fun games to play. They have that kind of they strike that kind of in between of, you know, the
I have 30 minutes to burn. Here's a quick sort of thing to burn those 30 minutes.
It's not like it's not like the intensity of a FPS like that. You know, you kind of have to sometimes, like you know, when you're an older kind of gent, like you have to kind of work your way up to sort of in that kind of sense. But like it's not like something that requires like 3 hours if you're going on like on a fleet in EVE sort of thing. So it's quite nice.
Yeah, sometimes you just want to play a match and piss off for the rest of the day, frankly.
Yeah, to sit down with EVE is sort of like, okay, I'm sitting down to EVE, I'm going to go mining. I'm down for a minimum of an hour. I'm going for a fleet minimum of 2 hours. Oh, I'm going to do a bit of ratting. I'm probably sitting down for 40 minutes to an hour at least. There's no real quick activities apart from the Abyss. I think the Abyss is the only quick activity in EVE that sort of scratches that itch of I've got 30 minutes to burn. What can I do? Oh, I can do a quick dive into one of the abyssal pockets.
Yeah, there is that.
Whereas, you know, the games you mentioned, like World of Tanks and World of Warships and stuff like that, boom, I'm in there, I'm in a match for, you know, 10 to 15 minutes, maybe 20, and done. You can walk away from that kind of stuff a lot easier than you can something at the EVE.
Well, I guess I'm thinking of long-term commitments.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, I've been experiencing Arma 3 with DayZ stuff, and actually hooked up with a group of initiative guys that have a server. So when I need a quick getaway, you know, from the stresses of leadership, but man, I just pew pew pew.
Go shoot some zombies.
It's interesting you mentioned Arma 3 because one of my hobbies for a few years, you know, I've got a military background, and I started doing mission design for a lot of the armor groups out there over the years. So that's my other secret hobby is I do stuff like that for people.
Oh, so you did a whole lot of Zeus and stuff, right?
Zeus mission design, you know, classic editor stuff, things like that. Right now, I'm working with a group primarily based out of the UK.
Yeah, I've been playing AWG, American Warfare Gaming. Their detail, it's pretty good. They're about 80 people or 70 people are on each server. They have like 5 servers. It's crazy.
And this is Arma 2?
Yeah, Arma 3, AWG, and if you just search it up, I get in, I literally just loot something in town and just run off and murder people while they're trying to do the same thing. It's endless fun.
All right. Speaking of endless fun, I think we're just about done here. I've got to get on with my day. Canaris, how you doing? You disappeared.
Yeah, me too. I need to pull a couple things together.
Yeah, we got a free McLeod too, giving us all this video feed.
They chained me to the desk.
As well.
They chained me to the desk.
Thank you guys for the show and the host. It's been good fun listening to everything.
Thank you, Seraph. I like what you had to say. This would be good. We can find new guests. You know, we're always looking to diversify guests. So if we can hear you and see what you sound like on air, and you have a good mic and everything, we'll be looking for you in the future.
I'm usually around.
Everybody go buy a horrible mic now. Some Logitech piece of garbage for $25.
So suddenly there's a massive spike in sales of those really terrible like Microsoft desk mics.
$2 AliExpress specials.
Yeah. People are like wondering what the hell's going on.
Real quick, you guys like this after show? Should we do this again?
I love it.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Excellent.
All right. Good.
Should do an after show Burn Jita special next week.
Ooh.
Yeah, we didn't talk about that, but Burn Jita is next week. Yeah, we might as well do it. Maybe we can actually get some video up on Jita and watch
live reporting from Jita.
Yeah,
it's coming up.
Yeah, count on it. We'll do it next weekend. We'll do some Burn Jita live coverage after talking in stations.
If anybody wants to throw me a Freighter, we can do like Jita sort of Jita extraction, sort of like gamble bids.
Here's a thought I'll plant into people's heads. What's Test going to do about Burn Jita, considering their presence in perimeter? Questions.
Nothing.
It's gonna hurt their bottom line.
If anything, join in.
If you're moving injectors by the freighter load, you have too much ISK.
Oh.
Well, there are many people in Eve that have more money than sense.
Also, Burn Jita is starting earlier and earlier, so they'll say it starts Saturday, and then they'll start shooting people on Thursday. So don't wait till last minute to move stuff.
I mean, for some SIGs, every day is Burn Jita. I mean, it's just
exactly.
That is
All
true.
right. Cool. Thank you, guys. Appreciate you guys coming in and hanging out with us and talking. Or lurking. Lurking's fine, too.
Speak to you soon, guys.
Thank you very much. I think that was